I love this game. This game has given me so much. It has made my family not have to worry about things that I went through as a child, and it has made where my mom doesn't have to work.
Donyell Lamar Marshall, born May 18, 1978. Yell, as his teammates ironically called him, contrast to his demeanor and personality. When I see a player like Donyell Marshall, I can't help but compare him to what his ceiling should have been, which is the first but poor man's Anthony Davis. They were the same size, played a similar style, and both can be categorized as soft for their positions relative to what you'd expect based on their obvious ability. They both preferred not to get their jerseys wrinkled apparently, more times than not settling for the easy jump shot rather than receiving contact on their way to finishing at the rim. When you talk about college basketball players and players that dominated on that level, a name usually forgotten is Donyell Marshall. By his junior season, he held a top 3 scoring average in the history of UConn basketball at over 25 a game, and although he only played 3 seasons for the Huskies, he finished 11th in school history in total points. He was also an outstanding rebounder and shot blocker in college, making his profile on paper able to fool most NBA teams into taking the Big East standout much too high. The team was the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the pick was number 4. For many reasons, this was a bad pick for Minnesota, who it seems by now are prone to making the worst selections over their history, with the most experience being a lottery participant maybe ever. 4th overall picks come with great expectations. Anywhere in the top 5, you're seen as a player that has the potential to immediately change a franchise in some way, compete for numerous postseason individual awards, and most certainly either lead your team to contender status or be a strong pillar that if another is added to the team, together you can have success. It's also a pick you'd think extensive time scouting was used on, and equally extensive preparation for the player joining the team has been made to ensure he's comfortable enough to play at his best. And this is where teams usually fall short and the player winds up useless. Minnesota taking Donyell Marshall 4th overall is exactly what he became for them, as he was traded after just 40 games in his rookie season. All was not lost for Marshall though, as he still became a productive player later in his career, averaging a double-double twice and shooting at least 40% in a few seasons. For over 10 years, he and Kobe held the record for threes in a game at 12. So why is Donyell Marshall still considered an NBA bust? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Donyell Marshall was a 6'9" power forward, small forward, born and raised in Reading, Pennsylvania, that became a Parade All-American and McDonald's All-American by his senior year. He chose the University of Connecticut to play for Jim Calhoun, who promised he'd play immediately and have the chance to be one of the team's top players. He didn't start off as the most confident or tough players for UConn, usually pushed around with his slender frame and lack of competitive fire. He'd be called on for last shots and routinely ask his coach if he was sure putting him in that position was the right choice. In just a few years, he did develop a more mean streak and began to dominate college basketball on his way to a top 5 pick. Stunt number 1, the wrong era. One thing that works out perfectly for a guy like Anthony Davis is playing in this new era of the NBA where you can get away with being a more finesse player, especially big men. With the emergence of positionless basketball, more frequent foul calls for hand checking and rough defense, Donyell Marshall would fit like a glove. In the mid-90s and even early 2000s, basketball was extremely physical and players weren't usually bailed out for foul calls like seen in today's game. Placing a passive player like Marshall in that era would be an obvious challenge to navigate and is where Donyell faced his biggest hurdles. He didn't begin as a great three-point shooter, but took guard amounts during games in an era where that was seen as avoiding physical contact. After a successful junior season where he led his team to the regional semifinals, he became the Big East Player of the Year and first-team All-American in school history. Marshall entered the NBA draft and was taken 4th overall by Minnesota in '94, ahead of future All-Stars Juwan Howard and Eddie Jones. Minnesota chose to play Marshall at what seemed like his more comfortable position, and for them, it didn't work, seeing as Marshall didn't have the ability to create for self or his teammates, nor the wing defensive skills to be a high-level two-way small forward. He settled for a lot of threes and deep twos as an NBA player, making him geared to one direction early, a jump shooter. Now you hear that and you think, what's the problem? But during Marshall's time, big men settling for deep shots weren't the most popular. He was traded mid-season to the Golden State Warriors. He had a few unhealthy seasons early, but found his seam with Golden State with a career high for that team of 15 points a game and almost 9 rebounds and attempting 3 threes in almost 36 minutes. He became a very capable player, but his skill set often went misused compared to how valuable he could be if used correctly or in a different era. Stunt number 2, too soft.
I used to just go through a lot of pain. I was always tired and hurting, walking home limping and stuff.
That brings me to this. Marshall isn't a mean or fierce competitor naturally. He just got his however it came to him. Rarely would you see him attack a full game with attempts close to the basket, and some of that could be related to his personality and even past experiences. Marshall's a nice guy. You'd hear past teammates say this about him as an overall consensus, and that if he ever develops a competitive edge, he could be unstoppable with his size and shooting touch. In college, he did develop into a great leader for the team as a junior, but early on in the NBA, and some say throughout his career, that competitive chip on his shoulder rarely showed itself, making him a very streaky player and eventual journeyman when teams in that era couldn't figure how to use him. In his seasons with the Golden State Warriors, he played some of the best basketball of his career and most minutes on a team that missed the playoffs every season with Donyell on the roster. You ask any player from college to pros their reaction to seeing Marshall on the floor, they'd probably say his biggest problem is that he's soft and didn't like physical contact. He was traded by Golden State in 2000 and his journeyman career began. He was starting to handle physical play more, and it showed in his increased rebounding over the years. But teams couldn't figure a fit for Marshall. His best season came with the Raptors in 2003-2004 at 16 points a game and almost 3 blocks. With a little more toughness early on, who knows what Marshall could have been. Stunt number 3, predictable. You never want to make yourself that as a basketball player. It's the one separation I think between Anthony Davis and what Marshall could have been. Davis developed ways to score the basketball other than settling for threes, and if he's angry enough, he could dominate a game down low as well. I don't think Donyell ever developed those skills as an NBA player. Instead, he just fell into the typecast as a three-point shooter and didn't have the athleticism or ball skills to slash and drive his way to an easy basket. After career numbers in 03-04, his play significantly fell off thereafter, and he became a quick bench spark that could come in, sit on the three-point line, and knock down a shot or two created by an adequate guard. He finished his career with averages of 11 points a game and almost 7 rebounds. All in all, not every top 5 pick is a sure thing, just like all number 1s aren't either. Donyell Marshall leaving college was quite close. He had size, could shoot for a big or at small forward, and was an unbelievable scorer. It's difficult not to select that as soon as possible for some team. Had he been taken in a spot more suitable, no one would be calling him a bust today. He retired in 2009 and began his coaching career beginning in 2010 to present, recently parting ways with Central Connecticut State in 2021. Salute to Donyell, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.